he has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Loren Norris.
You would never imagine, but I'm going to tell you that it's truth. A pickup line, like you might use in a bar or a singles club or maybe at the church singles meeting, a pickup line is a leadership tool. A pickup line is a leadership tool, and that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and maybe you've seen that little show, it's called How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, the whole thing was about this relationship that flourished and eventually became the two parents who became the parents of the offspring. The I Met Your Mother part would kind of be the clue, right? But it really talks about how the two came together in the first place. And I can tell you, as a person who's been married almost 3 decades, the pickup line is a very important part. Right? Sometimes we watch these Facebook memes, right? YouTube. There's even TV shows about it. The pickup line, the how to get the single guy or how to get the single girl. I mean, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, The Farmer Needs a Wife. All of these shows are based on the same thing, and that is, how good a story can you tell to win the affection of the one that you're considering a possible suitor? This person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, or at least the night. If the story that you tell, if the pickup line that you have, if the offer doesn't make any sense, you're going home without a date. Or if you're on one of those shows, you're going home just as single as you were when you showed up. See, all of these are the same form of storytelling that set the expectations for our future. They tell us what's coming next, and they kind of map out for anybody who might go along on the journey with us what you could expect that to be. My wife and I, on our very first outing together, I don't think either one of us at the time would have called it a date. We'd known each other about 3 weeks, and we had a chance to go to a conference. It was a conference on overcoming fear. I believe the guy's name was Freeman, and we drove 2.5 hours from where we met, the little town that we met in, into the big Dallas Metroplex, just to see a seminar on how to overcome fear. And on the trip, on the way back, I asked her a very important question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you could do exactly what you want to do, money was not an object, and there was nothing standing in your way. Now, here's the irony. At the time that I asked that question, I understood how important it was that we would be on the same page moving forward, but I hadn't really, aside from the leadership book that I read, the Becoming a Person of Influence, I hadn't been studying leadership. I was 25. I hadn't been studying all of these things that I've been studying for the last 25 years now. I really had very little inclination as to how important this question was. I just knew it was good conversation, and it would really give me a picture about what life was going to be like if we had a future together. Remember, this is our very first outing. Oh, we'd been together with the singles groups and had lunch. We'd hung out together after church on a Sunday afternoon. That we'd spent time in the pool with her little girl or something like that. But that was the extent of it. This was the first time it was just the two of us for an extended period of time. And I said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you think you're here for? What is your life all about? And when she answered the question, it struck me how close her answer was to my answer. Of course, shortly after she answered the question, she asked me the same question. And I said, well, 5 years from now, I hope to be well on my way to writing books and speaking at seminars all over the world. I want to help people save families and save children from the divorce scenario that I went through as a kid. It was almost like we tore the same page out of the same book on different sides of the planet and tried to put the pages back together. We came really, really close. And we've spent the better part of 3 decades together doing exactly that. Writing books, speaking to couples, speaking to families, mentoring young people. That's what we do. It's who we are. It was the story that we told each other about ourselves that mapped out our future, that said, this is who we will be, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do. And the fact that those 2 stories were almost identical is not coincidental. I can tell you right now, there are a whole lot of companies out there that when they launch, they have 5, 6, 7 people around the table they all have ideas, and some can execute one part of the company's needs and the others execute a different part. And usually at launch, they all have exactly the same story in mind about where we are and where we're going and what things are going to be like. But just like Zuckerberg and his partner, or Bill Gates and his partner, or Steve Jobs and his partner, when they launch their companies, it doesn't take long before you realize you have more than one vision. That's called division, division, a diverted vision. A diverted vision is what happens when the story changes. When the story that you've been telling yourself doesn't meet up with reality. And suddenly your vision becomes very corrupted. I was listening to an interview this morning with Anthony Robbins. He was on the Logan Paul show. And he said there are 3 things that everybody does in their life, in their subconscious mind, that leads them to decision making. And I can clearly remember 2 of those things, but the third one slips my mind. I can't remember what that was. So if you've seen that interview, please drop the third one in the comments and share that with everybody else so they don't have to go watch the whole video. Or if you know the link to the video that I'm talking about, Anthony Robbins with Logan Paul on the Impossible show, whatever that is, then drop it in there. So here's the 2 that I remember. He said, we all subconsciously make decisions based on 3 things. And one of those 3 things was how we perceive the circumstances around us. That lens is either we see everything that we don't have or we see everything that we do have. And one of those leads us to be constantly craving. And it doesn't matter if we have $1 million in the bank, but we look at what we don't have, then we're looking at the 100 million that we don't have in the bank or the 40 billion that we don't have in the bank. And so we live in a depressed state because we're looking at what we don't have. He said, on the other hand, if we look at what we do have, if we're grateful for what we do have, whether it's $2 or 2 million or 200 million, being grateful for what we have puts us in a state of happy. If you spend your time focused on what you don't have, you'll be depressed. If you spend your time focused on what you do have, you have a much better chance of being happy. So that's our number 1 decision-making factor. Subconsciously, we're either thinking about what we don't have or what we do have. The number 2 was, are we thinking about the future, the present, or the past? And he said it's ironic that most successful entrepreneurs are constantly seeking the future. That vision we talked about, that story about what the life is going to be like in the future. What are we moving toward? Not are we in, not what we were, not where we came from, but what are we moving toward? And if we continue to focus on what we're moving toward, then things are going to change. And that's the last one I remember. I don't remember the third one. But shortly after that, I was listening to an interview with Jordan Peterson. And in that interview, Jordan Peterson was asked the question, have we lost the culture war? And I thought, that's a really big question, because the whole heart of Lead the Narrative, which you see the logo behind me, the whole heart of Lead the Narrative is to understand there's a whole lot of narratives out there that I don't agree with all of them. Those vision statements that I look at and go, yeah, that's not for me. Just like a company that may start with 7 people on the board, 7 people on the founders team, and 3 or 4 of them eventually say, yeah, I don't like the direction this is going. I'm out. I'm on with something else. You see it on Shark Tank all the time. They use those words. I'm out. I'm not going to invest in this. I'm not interested in the path that you're going down. Well, every entrepreneur, every innovator that steps to the stage at Shark Tank, they have a story to tell because they have a product or an idea to sell, and they need to get buy-in. And you only get buy-in if you have a great story. It's kind of like trying to get that first date. It's like trying to get that person to marry you and spend the rest of their life with you. You've got to have a great story. What is life going to be like if I put in $100 million? Will you stay? If I buy into your philosophy, will life be worth it? And so as I'm listening to Jordan Peterson being asked this question, have we lost the culture war? I was really excited to hear his answer. And I got more excited the longer it took him to answer the question. Because the very long pause was close to a minute of silence. And his final reply was, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. And with a little more pushing, he said, the problem is there's one group who has a worldview and an ideology and a story to tell. And that group is in lockstep with that story. They know exactly what that story is. They repeat it without fail, without error. They all say exactly the same thing. Now, whether that story is based in truth or not, whether there's evidence to support it or not, they are sold out to that story and they keep telling it. He said the other side, they don't even have a story. They've been playing the game in rear guard, hoping that nobody sneaks up behind them and steals what they've had. They have truth on their side most of the time, but they don't have a story. They don't have the ability to articulate the vision of what it will be like if we continue to pursue these ideals, these goals, these core values. And as he said it, I instantly texted that video to my wife and I said, you got to take a look at this. It's almost as if his answer to that first question is the cause for what I do with Lead the Narrative. Now, I realize right here on Leading Leaders podcast, I've been talking about the power of story and storytelling for a long time. This show is in its 10th year, the 9th season, if you will. And as I look at what this show is all about and how it impacts people, it changes with the distribution of the videos. Some of these videos have 500,000 views and some have 4. Not 400,000, not 400, not 4,000, 4. Single digits. What's the difference? It's the story. Sometimes the story that I'm telling is palpable for those who control such things as algorithms. And sometimes the story that I'm telling doesn't agree with them at all. I've had people say, well, you need better thumbnails. Sure, that will work on some days. Oh, you need better SEO. You got to have better descriptions in the descriptions of your videos. That'll work on some days. But in case you haven't figured it out, the algorithm's now being run by the AI, and the AI has the ability to listen to every word that I'm saying as I'm saying it. How do I know? Because they're typing it on the screen. If you're watching in a mode right now on any one of the multiple social media platforms that this is being streamed to, 9 core platforms as I speak. If you're watching on any of those platforms, chances are captions are turned on, and those captions are live. How do you know? Well, if you want to know if the captions on the video that you were watching are live, look for my name, because Siri cannot spell my name right. Whatever AI function they're using, my name is J. Loren Norris. That's Lorennorris with the initial J in the front. And every live transcript uses the full word J-A-Y and spells my name like a girl, L-A-U-R-E-N. If you see my name spelled J. Loren Norris and it's not the way I put it on my business cards, then those transcripts didn't come from me. Which means the story that I'm telling you right now could be modified by AI before it even reaches your eyeballs. It, in fact, is, which also means they have the ability to judge it and determine if the things that I said are, well, in agreement with the story that they're telling. And when they're not, the algorithm just says, yeah, make sure that one never gets seen. Doesn't mean it doesn't get published. It's out there. I've only had 1 or 2 videos in the history that I've been doing this actually removed, but I've had many that have been squelched. I have a video right now that is a duplicate of another video on a particular platform. When it was live, it has 118 views. Since it was edited and reposted, the exact same video, the exact same interview, has over 1,100 views. I have another one that I posted on my basic social medias, and that story has 8 or 10 views. But on one platform, 15,000 and growing. Why is that? Because it's all about the story. The story we tell really drives people to say, I'm in alignment with you. I agree with you. I want to go the same direction as you. I want to do what you're doing. I believe what you're saying. And you got my buy-in. But that story also tells other people, that's not the path I want to go down. That's not what I believe about this world or about life or about myself. And I want to change that. When we look at the reality of our world through the lens of the stories that we tell, we realize, well, Anthony Robbins was right. If we tell the story from the perspective, subconsciously, that we don't have enough, it's because we're focused on what we don't have. If the stories that we tell always point to, I don't have enough, I need help, I need a handout, I'm a victim, then we're living our lives through the lens of a story that causes us to wish we had more. And without gratitude, you're not going to find happiness. It's ironic, though, that it's something about the personality, the demeanor, the conversation, the presence of someone who's content with life as it is, happy with what they have, whether that's a whole lot or it's not a whole lot. That person seems to be more pleasant. People want to hang out with them. People want to be around them. People want to do things with them and for them. People tend to give to them. Even when they don't ask, they get gifts. Why is that? Because nobody wants to hang out with a sourpuss. If the story that you're telling, and I don't mean the long monologue, I mean every little micro story that you tell in your life. My car broke. Well, whose fault was it? I forgot to put oil in it. Whose fault is that? Well, the last time I got an oil change, those yahoos. Okay, if you can't take responsibility for anything in your life, it's a pretty good sign that you're looking only at the negative. It's about the decisions you make, subconsciously and consciously, but they all show up in the stories that you're telling. They all show up. Your attitude, your demeanor, your sense of joy and happiness, whether you're grateful or not grateful, whether you have a plan for the future or not, they all show up in the stories that you tell. The stories you tell about why you chose those colors on your business card. Chances are, in the story, when you explain why you chose those colors on your business card, you're going to reveal your worldview. True story. And the other part of that is every story that we tell reveals whether we're looking at the past, we're living in the victimhood, the things that went wrong, what went wrong, or even worse sometimes is that person who so lives in the past that they only find the success of what they've already accomplished. Oh, it's great to have all the trophies on the wall and the plaques and the banners and the badges. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. You see a military guy and he's got ribbons from his collarbone to his navel, or she. That's usually a good sign they've done some incredible things in the past. And not to dishonor or disregard those things of the past because they have made you who you are. But you can't just live in previous glory. You've probably met that person who was the softball superstar in high school or the national champion of cheerleading or the star quarterback in football. And every story sounds like that. Every story comes from that moment. They're living in the past. And then there are some that, well, they have no regard for the past, but they're so living in the present that they don't have any idea what the future holds. It's great to enjoy the present. It's also good to have a pretty good plan for what's coming next. And when someone lives in that mindset, that they are grateful for everything they have and still encouraged that a better future is ahead, there's happiness there, there's contentment there, there's an attraction there. People want to be around people like that. If you tell stories that sound like that, filled with hope and possibility and opportunity and new ideas and innovation, people want to be around you. They long to be around someone who has an idea for the future. Why don't you tell stories like that? See, then Dr. Peterson mentioned this interesting word. I'd never thought of it. I had to go look it up. Now, I didn't pull my old dictionary. This one's from 1980. But he used this word, slogan. Right here in 1980, it says, a war cry of a Highland clan in Scotland. The war cry of a Highland clan in Scotland. That's a slogan. It goes on to say it's a catchword for focusing public interest. A slogan is a catchword for focusing public interest. Dr. Peterson went one step further, though. He said the slogan, and he used the actual etymology of the word. Where did it come from? Etymology or entomology? One's about words, one's about bugs. I can never remember which one. That really bugs me. The idea of the word slogan actually comes from two old Slavic words, and those two words are, I can't pronounce them. But when put together, what they mean is the battle cry of the dead. The battle cry of the dead. This is the echoing in the mountains and the valleys after a war, the cry of those who lost. That's often the slogan. But see, the story that moves forward, the story that has hope, the story that has a future, the story that is based on the things that could be. Grateful for what we have, but focused on what could be. Those opportunities, those plans for the future. See, if the story you're telling as a leader in your organization is a woe is me story, not going to get a lot of buy-in. Misery loves company, but the people that are going to gather around you are going to be miserable people. Living in a woe is me story, telling a woe is me story, telling a sad, depressing story. One of the guys that was a part of the interview with Logan Paul and Anthony Robbins said, I used to be on antidepressants. And Tony kind of laughed. He said, let me guess, you took a whole lot of pills and you were still depressed. He said, absolutely, I was. It was almost like taking the pills made me more depressed. And Anthony said, all you got to do is change your perspective. If you change your state, a lot of times choosing to be grateful will make you happy. Taking those pills will not change your circumstances any more than choosing your attitude. But you can be happy in bad circumstances if you have the right attitude. That's a choice. That's a choice. Viktor Frankl wrote the book, Search for Significance. And in that book, was that his? Or Search for Meaning? Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist or psychologist during the time of the Nazi campaign to intern all the Jews, and his parents were interned. And he talked about the concentration camp life and how hard that was. And he said, you, even in this absolute destructive time of life, can be happy if you choose to, or you can choose to be depressed. In the end, as a leader, the story that you tell will reveal your mindset. It'll reveal how you look at the world. Not enough, or I got plenty. Looking at the future, the past, or the present. And every micro story that you tell is just like a pickup line on a date. You will either attract the people to you that you want to spend the rest of your time with, or you will repel them. But the story you tell, that's the job of the leader. And how it comes across in the world will mean everything to the power of your future. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Loren is a master teacher on storytelling, and I learned so much. I'm really going to have to sit down and go back through everything, and I think I might have to have some more coffees with Loren, but it was totally worth my time, and I really highly recommend it if you're looking to grow your ministry, grow your business, grow your career. Loren will serve you well.
Thank you.